Trump backs down to China. So is this a tactical move or total capitulation? In a move that honestly stunned analysts around the world, President Donald Trump, once the architect of a scorched earth tariff war that brought US-China relations to the brink, has abruptly announced a significant reduction in import tariffs on Chinese goods. It wasn't the result of negotiations, and it definitely wasn't a diplomatic breakthrough. It was, quite simply, a unilateral declaration. The timing could not be more telling. This decision came amid a flurry of signs that Trump's administration is facing intense pressure, both at home and abroad. Just weeks ago, Trump publicly vowed to raise tariffs to 245% to force China to its knees. And yet now he suddenly wants to be nice, expressing a desire for cooperation and pledging a dramatic tax rollback. But you know, this is not a pivot born of goodwill. It's a maneuver born of pressure, political, economic, and strategic. Trump's tariff offensive failed to subdue China. Instead, it has driven the US economy into isolation, while China restructures its markets and pivots toward BRICS, Europe, and Africa. America has lost both trading partners and global credibility. Behind his talk of kindness lies the image of a leader who is backing down, not out of strength, but out of fear that the US economy is heading for a cliff. Since the beginning of 2025, data from the US Bureau of Economic Analysis shows GDP growth plummeting from 2.3% to just 0.8% in the first quarter. Agriculture has lost its export markets, manufacturing is reeling from a shortage of imported materials, and American consumers, meanwhile, are suffocating under dual inflation fueled by tariffs on Chinese goods. The consequences are, well, pretty stark. Business confidence has plunged to its lowest level in over a decade. The Nasdaq fell more than 11% in just 3 weeks after China retaliated with a 125% tariff on US goods. Hundreds of billions of dollars in foreign investments have fled US markets, redirecting to the Eurozone and Asia. Industrial states from Pennsylvania to Michigan are witnessing a sharp spike in unemployment. Ironically, many of these states once served as Trump's electoral strongholds. Now, they're the epicenters of protests against his trade war. Observers warned that Trump's tariff cuts do not signal a genuine shift in trade policy. Instead, it may be a classic case of retreat to regroup. Trump has employed the tactic of the false ceasefire before, temporarily easing pressure to manipulate public opinion, stabilize markets, and then strike back unexpectedly. This move may well be a smokescreen to salvage his image amid growing political instability. This suspicion is further fueled by the fact that no formal trade talks have resumed between Washington and Beijing. No agreements, no commitments, no roadmap, just a tactical soundbite issued at a time when the White House is cornered from every direction in the United States. The announcement of a drastic tariff reduction on Chinese imports has not been received as a welcome development, but rather a troubling sign of instability in Trump's strategic direction. Within the Republican Party, division is becoming more pronounced. Hawks like Senator Josh Hawley and Representative Jim Jordan swiftly criticized the move, accusing Trump of bending his stance in desperation. They warned that any compromise would be exploited by Beijing in future long-term agreements. Conversely, moderate Republicans and business groups applauded the decision. The National Association of Manufacturers issued a cautiously optimistic statement, calling it a chance to restore trade flows and stabilize industrial supply chains, but even they warned that another policy reversal would irreparably damage market confidence. On Wall Street, Trump's move was met with indifference. Many investors said the tariff cut was too little, too late, incapable of restoring optimism that had already collapsed months ago. Stock indices briefly rallied, only to cool off quickly, reflecting continued skepticism that the White House has a coherent or sustainable strategy. As for the American public, especially agricultural and industrial workers who once fervently backed Trump's America First promises, this reversal feels like a betrayal. They're left bearing the brunt of a trade war they never fully understood, now abandoned mid-battle. Without apology or compensation, Beijing made no bombastic statements. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce issued a brief message. We acknowledge the signal from the United States and will observe further developments. Short, yet heavy with implication. China will not be lured by rhetoric alone. Former Global Times editor Hu Shijinene called Trump's move a weak and inconsistent step. He argued that China now holds a stronger bargaining position, especially as new partners like Brazil, Russia, Africa, and the European Union deepen their trade ties with Beijing. More importantly, China is not responding solely with trade, but with a transformation of global financial architecture. Beijing continues expanding UN-based transactions, stockpiling gold instead of US dollars, and bolstering financial cooperation with Asian and BRICS nations. This steadily undermines the dollar's global dominance, really one of the last tools America had to project power. Politically, China is winning by staying silent. It doesn't need to threaten, it doesn't need to retaliate, it simply no longer cares. And that, for Washington, is the most terrifying outcome: total irrelevance among America's traditional G7 allies. Germany, France, Japan, and Canada, skepticism reigns. Germany's Du Spiegel called Trump's tariff reversal a panicked move. France's Lemon commented, "When a president once branded the world as an economic enemy, any gesture of peace must be viewed as theater." Canada, having just scrapped a major oil deal with the US, did not issue an official response. But its media painted Trump's reversal as the natural fallout of erratic, confrontational policy. The Globe and Mail stated plainly, when the US becomes unreliable, no one is obliged to cooperate. Meanwhile, BRICS nations welcome the shift. For them, a weakened United States represents a strategic opportunity. India and Brazil are rapidly filling the gaps left by American retreat, expanding their agricultural and energy trade with China and the European Union. Russia has remained silent, but analysts suggest Moscow is exploiting America's instability to accelerate its push for a parallel trade order, one that bypasses the Western-led system entirely. Trump's tariff rollback is not just a trade policy shift, it is a glaring symptom of a global power transition. While China, BRICS, and the Global South build a multi-centered economic ecosystem, the US remains trapped in a cycle of internal division, political crisis, and strategic incoherence. And if Washington continues to allow impulsive decisions to dictate its global role, the question is no longer whether America will lose its leadership, but who will replace it. There is no more doubt. Donald Trump, who once styled himself as the strongest economic president in US history, has now committed one of the most glaring self-contradictions of his political career. After years of hostile rhetoric, global trade disruption, and economic warfare, he is now the one backing down. Analysts are calling it the sharpest political slap a president has ever delivered to himself. Worse still, he is not only humiliating his legacy, but eroding the credibility of the entire American economy before a global audience. A nation once seen as the anchor of global commerce is now led by a man of unpredictable pivots, impulsive reflexes, and reactionary decisions. Allies look on in disbelief. Rivals like China and Russia smirk, and the American people, from Iowa farmers to Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, are now footing the bill for one man's chaotic crusade. The real question isn't whether Trump can save the US economy, it is whether he even has the legitimacy left to save anything at all. A true leader does not drag his nation into economic wars only to sign a quiet surrender when things go south. A true leader does not burn bridges with allies and then beg for cooperation once those bridges are reduced to ash. And a true leader does not disguise failure with empty words like cooperation or kindness. What we're witnessing may not be a new policy. It may be the quiet conclusion of a years-long strategic miscalculation. And the question now is not whether Trump can make it right. It is, can the United States survive repeating the same political mistake over and over again? Collapse doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in through ignored fractures, reckless decisions, and a system eroded until it can no longer defend itself. And today, Trump's reversal may well be the final crack. And you, what do you think? Is this a wise move or a hidden surrender? A chance for peace or an undeniable humiliation? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching until the end. If you found this important, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth global political and economic analysis. See you in the next.